Hello everyone, my name is Dex, and today I'm going to show you what you can do with a new update suppression method that was, by the way, not discovered by me, link in the description. And as you may have seen from the demonstration before, you can accelerate growth of a bunch of crops and other things like that. You know the drill, and it's fairly simple. You don't need any specific methods with sand or whatever, and it works on all things, and you don't need simulation distance shenanigans, and yeah, it's pretty cool, but I wouldn't say it's very survival viable. So the obvious huge thing that you can't oversee is this massive block of observers. Now, this of course is extremely expensive, but this is needed in order to do what we just did. We are basically just spamming observers all over in order to suppress the check for if the block is broken below it. And well, it doesn't completely suppress it because after a while we transferred this breaking update into a growth update, basically. You know the drill. And well, basically I could say that it slows down the check or whatever, so that sometimes it doesn't notice. And yeah, this is how this works. I wouldn't say this is very practical because, as you can see, that's a lot of observers. And each layer is 64 observers, so a stack, you know, that's 16 layers, which is 16 stacks, and that's a huge amount of observers and quartz. But you get the idea. Now, to you, this might be very reminiscent of zerotick / forced update, and it is. We basically force update the growth of whatever you are having right here. Sweet berries, I don't know why you would force update with that, or whatever. It also works on saplings, bamboo, you get the idea. But the basic idea is that it works for most plants or whatever that are based on random tick speed. And that way we can manipulate the growth, and yeah. Now, if you're interested in the setup of this thing, this is basically just observers that are constantly firing. And the way we do that is we just have a clock and a bunch of redstone dust underneath, and then we have just a bunch of observers stacked up. And it's pretty damn expensive, as you might be able to see. It's not hollow inside, unfortunately, and I believe so far observers are the most effective method because observers are really laggy and really slow, and if we bunch them all up in a cube like this, it gets very laggy and we can suppress the updates that would normally break these crops. As you can see, it grows instead, which is kind of neat. And we just have basically this all this redstone dust on the clock, and the observers detect that, and we chain them, these observers. So that's pretty damn expensive and laggy. Well, as you can see, my frame rates are pretty smooth, but this is basically just game lag. And it doesn't really significantly slow down everything, it only slows down some things. So yeah, as you can see, if I have a piston, it still works just fine. It only appears to affect some things, like these plants checking for the block below them, or their planting requirements, basically for them not to explode. Now, in this current setup, if I do it too fast, it still falls off, but at normal speed, it just works, which is pretty interesting. But again, as I said, this huge block of observers is not gonna help with just being viable in survival. Now, another thing to note is that this only works in the same chunk as far as I am aware. So as you can see, I built this inside a chunk. Those are the chunk boundaries. And if I just try to bridge out from here and build this inside a different chunk, it won't work the same way. So if I just grab myself some endstone like right here and then place it on there, as you can see, it will break instantly. And this is because, as far as I know, there is a cap for the amount of updates that can be processed at once inside one chunk. And basically, we use this machine right here, this observer block. I'm not sure if you can really call this a machine, this is just spamming observers. We basically use this thing to max out on the cap and make sure that the plants can't check fast enough if the block below them is broken, and by the time they check, it will already have turned into a growth update. And that is a pretty interesting way of fast growing crops. I still think the other methods are superior, but it's interesting to have this where you don't have to be far away. So this is basically like SimTick. It has some very annoying restrictions, but it's interesting. Oh, and if you are wondering, no, you cannot remove portal frames because they don't have the same type of check as the plants do. Like I said, this only affects some checks and not every check. So yeah, there has to be done more testing to find out what exactly is affected and what is not. But as far as I know, all sorts of plants that use random tick speeds to grow are definitely affected. And portals, for example, that could be very useful if we could remove the portal borders. Those are definitely not affected, which is kind of unfortunate because I was hoping to get some free, floating portal tiles, but unfortunately that is not the case. So if you're wondering if I'll ever do a farm with this, probably not, because there's a bonkers amount of observers involved, and if we were to use different redstone components, that would definitely be less laggy than observers, because observers are by far the laggiest component. That would require a ton more, and I don't think that is worth it, honestly. You could just use the simtick method, which is basically aligning the plants at the edge of your simulation distance, then moving the blocks below them, and then loading the plants back in. You could use that. That works as well for sweet berries, chorus fruit, and whatever and whatnot. Or if you just want normal crop fast growth, I always have my zerotick bamboo, cactus, kelp, and sugarcane farms that are also on my channel, of course. And those work very fine within your simulation distance. You can be right next to them. And yeah. So I encourage everyone that watches this video to go out and test more with this to find if there are more useful applications for this. And if you do find one, you can write it down in the description, because we are always interested in more technical discoveries, and that could make our life easier. And this is definitely one of the more interesting discoveries. Again, not by me, link in the description. But this is pretty much everything there is to say, or at least what I have experimented with this sort of update suppression machine for Bedrock Edition. So thank you very much for watching, and if you do find this interesting, I would highly encourage you to subscribe to this channel, because I do keep posting interesting stuff like this regularly. And I would highly recommend you enjoying the rest of the stuff I have on my channel, because it is also very similar and also very interesting. With that being said, I hope you very much enjoyed this video and found it interesting. My name is Nex, and bye bye.